So the last of our mini tutorials was showing you how to get stems files, where to go looking for stems files, what to be thinking about when you're buying stems files for the first time so that you get a nice variety. And one of the things I spoke about was getting songs with recognizable and good vocals in them, because they're where you're going to have your early wins, your easy kills when you're starting to teach yourself how to use stems. So if you did watch that last video, you'll know that I took a liking to a remix of Bass, How Low Can You Go, the very famous Public Enemy vocal, but that Milk and Sugar had done. And there was also a kind of underground, ravey, minimal, techno-y track that I loved that I said reminded me of when I was a lot younger, staying up all night and playing music just like that. And I've actually got both of those tracks here now. So in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to mix those tracks together, take the vocal out of one, drop it over the other one. And I'm also going to show you how a technique for mixing from track to track to track while having this kind of fun with stems and taking bits from one and bits from another. The problem being, of course, that if you're messing with two tracks and you're dropping bits in and bits out, you might find you're getting to the end of both of them and you haven't really thought about what you're going to do next. Well, there's an easy way around that, which I'm going to show you. So let's get started. I've got both those tracks loaded. Now, the first thing to talk about is setting your gear up properly for stems. Have sync on. This isn't about manual beat matching. Have your sync buttons on so everything's nicely in sync. Have your snap and quantize buttons on, and that means that when you're dropping cue points, they're going to snap to the beat when you drop them, and quantize means that when you jump to a cue point that you've already set, it's going to snap to the beat as well. Again, we're just trying to keep things tight. This isn't about timing so much as about thinking about the elements we want from each track. That's the kind of DJing skill that we're using here. So I'm going to set two tracks playing, and I'm just going to talk you through what's going on with these. So, there's one of my tracks, little beat there, my other tracks there, neither of them has really kicked in yet. The track on the left, this is the one that's going to have the vocal in it. The track on the left, off we go. This is my dark techno track that I want to drop the vocal in from the other one. So to get to your remix decks, your stems decks, I apologise, you press the remix deck button. So you press remix there and remix there. We're now on our stems decks on these two channels. And on the one on the right here, that's this one here, I'm going to turn off these three by pressing those buttons. These are on-off buttons for the four stems parts. And it tells you drums, bass, effects and vocals. So I've left the vocals on, which you can hear there. And on this track here, at the moment I've got everything on because it's an instrumental, so it doesn't really matter if I have everything switched on. There's never going to be a vocal on that one to clash with this one. So it sounds great. All we've got going here is this vocal, because I've turned everything else off on this track. That's everything switched on that track, what it would sound like. But I'm turning everything off apart from that vocal. The vocal's taking a little break at the moment. It'll be back any second. This track here, as I said, the whole lot's playing. So that's our basic mix. They're both synced and they have got elements that match a vocal and a instrumental. Okay, what can we do now that we've got this going to have fun with these tracks? Well, the place to have the fun here, in my view, is the vocal itself. And there's a few things you can do with that vocal using the controls here. You can put a filter on it to start with. So by pressing the button underneath the track, I am telling it that what I do next I want to happen to the vocal stem, which is number 4. I could put others on as well if I wanted, any combination, but I'm just going to do it on the vocal. And here's a filter. Low pass and high pass. I also have a volume control. And the volume is telling me there that it's going up and down. Now, if we were listening to the rest of the track, you'd hear that that's only affecting the vocals, but we're not because we've only got the vocal here. So there's our two tracks mixed together. They sound great. We can do filters, we can do volume, but we can also do effects. And effects is really easy as well. Let's press shift and then press on or off on any of the elements. And I'm going to do it on the vocal. And that turns the effects engine for this channel, which is set to the right-hand effects engine, on, but only for that vocal. So now when I turn this effect on here, I've got a transpose set here. just go to that on its own. So that's a lot of fun, obviously, with a vocal called bass. How low can you go? I can use a transpose on there, on that vocal. Okay, so we're playing away, we're having fun. Suddenly we realised we spent a few minutes messing about with our great vocal over our other track, and we realised that it's kind of run its course. And what we want to do is just maybe let this track here, which we haven't heard any of apart from the vocal, play all the way through. Trouble is, we're getting towards the end of it, and we're getting towards the end of this one as well. So the easy way out of this is to have cue points set. So I'm going to go back to the hot cues here, and I've got some cue points set here, and I'm going to just jump to a cue point on this track, but I want to also get this track playing with enough of its elements now in the mix, so that when I jump to that cue point and take that one out, it sounds smooth. So the biggest thing we need to swap over here is the bass line. There's a bass line coming in on this track at the moment, and there's no bass line on this track. So before hitting that hot cue, let's go back to here, switch bass. And the bass line on this track is now off, and this track is now on. You heard a profound difference there. Both tracks are still playing, but the bass line is now into our new track. The beat though is still the old one. Not anymore. I've just turned the beat off here, and I've turned the beat on here. So now we've got the beat and the bass line and the vocal in fact playing here. There's just one thing left, which is the effects. I'm going to turn those on. And over on this track, we've got pretty much everything off. If I turn the other two off, we'll end up with this track completely off. I might as well just turn the fader down. This track's getting near the end and there's not really that much going on. So on this track here, I'm going to hit the hot cue and I'm going to jump to a preset hot cue. And there we go, we're fully into this track here. Now that hot cue was actually set 4 beats before the beginning of an 8-bar section, just to give me that little bit of a flourish and to make it sound smooth. But essentially, by having a cue point set somewhere near the beginning of the track that you're messing with, but the one you want to end up on, you can do a very, very smooth and very simple mix like that. Remember, quantize and snap with your friends here. We just want to have this stuff pre-programmed, so really we know what we're going to do with these tracks before we do it. That's a good thing to remember with stems. Practice beforehand, because you don't want to end up just messing around and winging it. We've got a video by Joey Santos, who is one of our staff members who's been messing around with stems in a live environment, and we will link to that as soon as it's ready for you underneath here, and you'll see some more stuff about practicing in that video as well. It's really important. Okay. So we got from one track to another. We've messed around with the vocal. I've shown you how to use filters and volume and effects to mess around with elements within a stem. I guess the tutorial is over, but I do want to show you dropping in another vocal from another track to show you how easy it can be. So when you're using a vocal like that bass, how low can you go, which is spoken, it doesn't really matter about key, because musical key is all about harmony and about notes. Well, there's no harmony or notes in some guy talking. So that's why that kind of vocal is very easy to drop in over anything else. But if you do want to use a vocal that's got some melody in it, then it's important that you pick one that's in the same key or a related key. So over on our collection here, I have a track by Jakarta, American Dream, and I'm just going to pull that onto that deck there. And now that that's loaded, I've got a couple of loops set on here with a vocal. So again, we're going to go to our remix deck and we're going to turn off everything apart from the vocal. I've only got my vocal ready there, and I've got some loops. Now loops are a great way of pulling a little bit of vocal out of a track. So by isolating that particular stem and then hitting play on it, I've got an in-key snippet of vocal there over the bass line of this track here. So as this track finally starts to end, that piece of vocal there in the break is in perfect harmony, sounds great. And when I'm ready, I can drop the loop out and let that track play, and at the same time introduce the other bits of the track that are missing. And because I'm on a break, actually introducing them isn't going to cause much of a problem. Now, so check I have indeed got everything on in that track. And we're into a nice atmospheric break that's going to build up into the new track there. That was quite an abrupt mix, you know, there was no massive beat matching or anything going on there, but what was happening was a mixture of harmony and a vocal that had been playing for a little while over the outgoing track, and it was all made possible by having the remix decks. So remix decks, paradoxically, can make mixing a lot simpler for you by letting you weld in bits from tracks earlier than you normally would find possible in order to have a really smooth mix. We just saw two examples of that, with switching the beats and bass lines on the previous track and they're using a vocal to link two tracks. And we're off into a track that everyone knows there. You know, it's quite a crowd-pleasing mix without doing anything more than introducing that vocal early. Okay, so in this mini tutorial I've shown you how to mix with vocals, both vocals that have got melody in them and vocals which are just spoken. I've shown you how to alter those vocals using filters and volume, and I've shown you how to add effects to those vocals, and I've also shown you, when you are melding two tracks together and spending a long time messing around with them, how to very neatly jump back to effectively the incoming track and then let that just play on its own in a normal kind of traditional DJing way, so that you can then get something ready on the next deck. I hope this has been useful to you, and we're going to be carrying on with this tutorial series showing you how to use stems on Traktor equipment very soon, so watch out for the next episode.